Hello. Now we are going to look at the order we do our sums in. And to figure out the order we do our sums in with our natural numbers, we have to figure out how to read the language of maths. So if we take this sum here, we have 5 plus 4 bracket 2. And we know that bracket sitting next to a number, or number sitting next to a bracket, means multiply. So we have 5 plus 4 times 2. That's how we'd say that out loud. But what does it mean, and how does that help us to figure out how to do the sum? Well, if we think about the meaning of 5 by itself, that means we have 5 units. Whatever we're counting in, we've got 5 of that thing. It could be 5 meters, it could be 5 euro, it could be 5 minutes. But whatever we're counting in, those units that we're counting in, we've got 5 of them. That's what that means. But the 4 is a little bit different because it doesn't mean we've got 4 of a unit. It means we've got 4 groups of 2 units. So if I wanted to do this addition in particular, if I wanted to add this up, I'd have to be comparing like with like. I'd have to be adding a particular number of units to a particular number of units. So before I could do this addition, I'd have to turn the 4 by 2 into a particular number of units. I'd have to count up the total number of units for this bit before I then counted up my overall total number of units. So again, I have 5 units and I have 4 groups of 2 units. Well, again, if I think about 4 groups of 2, that means I'd have 8 units in total. I have 4 groups of 2 units, so I'd have 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. We'd end up with a total of 8 units. So we'd have 5 units and 8 units adds up to a total of 13 units. Looking at that written out this way, we'd have our 5 units plus 4 groups of 2. We'd have to convert 4 by 2 into 8 total units, and then we'd add 5 units plus 8 units is 13. And this is the way we have to structure our sum, where we can see the 4 groups of 2 become 8 units, and then we count up the total number of units. I can read this like an argument that I'd write out in my language classes. So the key piece here that I haven't written down is I had 5 units, so 5 ones, and I had 4 groups of 2 is 8 units, and then that adds up to a total of 13 units. Of whatever I'm counting, I have 13 ones of my unit. And that's always what I have to do to figure out my sums. I have to compare like with like. I have to add up units with units. And if I can keep track of adding up my like terms, where I'm adding ones and ones together, units together, then I can do my sums. So let's look at this in practice. I have 1 unit plus 2 groups of 6. Now, would it make sense for me to add 1 and 2 here? It wouldn't, because I have 1 unit plus 2 groups of 6. This means I have 6 plus 6 would be a total of 12 units. That wouldn't be the same thing as having 3 groups of 6. So because I understand how to read it, I know that this is going to be the same as 1 plus 2 groups of 6 would be a total of 12, because again, 2 groups of 6 would mean I'd have 1 plus 6 plus 6. That's what 2 groups of 6 looks like. And then when I add that up, I get a total of 13. So what does this mean? It means I have 2 groups of 6. When I've dealt with that, I know the total number of units. I can count up my overall total of 13. Here I have 4 plus 15 divided by 5. The fraction symbol here, fractions are the same thing as division. So I've written this as in two separate ways. You may sometimes see the sum written this way. This is the way that we will write it in general going forward. So we have 4 units plus 15 divided by 5. So I can't compare these two together because this is counting in units, 4 ones, and this is counting in fifths. So I'm not comparing like with like. I'd need to know how many units this part was before I could then count up my total number of units. So I have 4 units. I haven't done anything with that, so I just rewrite it. And then I have 15 divided by 5. Well, how many 5s go into 15? 3 of them do. So now I have units compared with units. Now I can just add up to my total of 7 units. What do I have to do here? Well, this is another division question. This is going to be 25 minus 7, all divided by 3. What I need to do here is say, well, how many, what would I have to add up here in order to get my total on the top? So when we are going to do our fractions like this, where we have complicated fractions, top or bottom, we are going to try and compare our number of units on the top to the number of the units on the bottom. So we're going to do the sum on the top here first. We have 25 minus 7 is going to give us 18, and that's divided by 3. So how many 3's are there in 18? Or put another way, the highest common factor would be 3 and we'd be left with 6. But how many 3's are there in 18? There's going to be 6 of them. Here we have 4 next to a bracket with a power of 2 on it. So this means I have 4 multiplied by this thing. So what I have to do is say, well, what does this sum mean? I have 4 times a bracket. Does that mean I can multiply 4 by 10 here? Well, it doesn't, because the power of 2 means I'd have to multiply 10 by itself 2 times. So if I read that carefully, I know that that means the same thing as 4 times 10 times 10. The power here is on the bracket that has 10 in it. So we have 4 times 10 times 10 is what that sum means. So we'd have 4 by 10 is 40. So I'm going to do that first part, and then that's still multiplied by 10. And then I have 40 multiplied by 10 will give me 400. Here I have 7 plus 8 to the power of 2 minus 2. So what can I add up here? What total can I get? Well, technically I have 7 units minus 2 units. I could add them up or subtract them, and I'd end up with 5 units. That's not technically wrong, but for right now it can be safer to get everything as units and then start to add and subtract. It's just that it's safer. It would not be wrong to say 7 minus 2 is going to give us 5, and then we'd have 8 squared as the second part of the sum. That's not wrong. It's just can be a little bit confusing to move things around when we're still getting used to stuff. So I'm going to do this out by saying 8 to the power of 2 means 8 times 8. I'm going to do that bit first because it's easier to keep track of, to get everything as units before I start doing my addition and subtraction. So 8 to the power of 2 means 8 by itself 2 times, which gives us 64. And just to highlight the order we can do this in, we can always work from left to right. So we could do 7 plus 64, or we could do 64 minus 2 and then add that onto 7. Whichever order you want to do it in is fine. Usually we'll work left to right, so that's what I'll do here. But there would be no problem in getting 62 and then adding that onto 7. But here we're going to have 7 plus 64 is going to give us 71 minus 2, and then that's going to leave us with 69 units in total. If we look at our next sum, we have 11 minus our tick symbol here means square root 81. Now if I want to compare like with like here, I can't have square roots and just units here. So I need to figure out what the square root of 81 is as units, and then I can do my sum. So I am going to have the square root of 81 means what number would I multiply by itself in order to end up with 81? And my times tables tells me that 9 times 9 would give me 81. So that's going to be 11 minus 9. And then I say I have 11 units minus 9 units. And that's okay. I know how to get that. That's just going to end up being a total of 2 units. Here we have 2 and then a bracket and 6 minus 4 inside the bracket. That means that we have 2 of all of this. So we have 2 of this group. Before we had 4 groups of 2. Now we have 2 of this overall group. And it's important we can think about it in this way. This idea in particular is going to be very important in the long run. So we have 2 of this group. Well, we know what that means. You could just, in the same way as 4 times 2 is 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. You could write this as 6 minus 4 plus 6 minus 4. There's nothing technically wrong with that. That is the same as 6 minus 4 plus 6 minus 4. And then you could start to add everything up. That will get you the right answer. There is nothing wrong with it, but you can see it looks quite messy. It takes a little while to write. So it's often better to add everything up inside the brackets first, so we don't have to write everything out quite so long here. So this would end up being the same. 6 minus 4 is 2, plus 2 ends up being 4. So that's what it ends up being like if we just say we have 2 of this bracket. But it's often better, so for now this might not be the best way to do it. What's often better is to say if we have 2 on 6 minus 4, instead of having to write out this group twice to add it up, we might say we have 6 minus 4 is 2, so we'd have 2 groups of 2, which would end up being a total of 4 units. Either is correct. This can be neater, so it's the way I recommend you do it in general. Here we have 13 minus 2 times this bracket, and again we have times that bracket just like we had here, so it can be a good idea to try and tidy this up so we don't have to take away 2 of this 10 minus 8 business. We can't take away the 2 from the 13 because we have 13 units minus 2 of this group, so we aren't comparing like with like. So we can say 13 minus 2, 10 minus 8 is 2. So we have 13 minus 2 groups of 2. Well, in total then we'd be taking away 4 units. Taking away 2 groups of 2 is the same as taking away 4 ones or 4 units. So we have 13 minus 4, and 13 minus 4 is going to be 9. And then finally we have 20 minus 12 divided by 6. So we have 20 units minus 12 sixths. So we aren't comparing like with like. We need to know how many units is 12 divided by 6. So 6 goes into 12 2 times. So that's going to be 20 minus 2 whole units. So that means that we would end up with a total of 18. And we can see as we go through the way that we write our sums. We're starting out with a particular sentence, a particular statement, and we're simplifying each piece. So we said 13 minus 2 of this group. Well, we simplified the group, and then we said how many units would there be, and then we counted up our total number of units. And we can see each time that is what we've done, and we can read line by line. 8 eighths is 64, that's where that came from. 7 and 64 is 71, and then minus 2 is 69. We can read line by line where our answers are coming from, and this is critical to how we are going to be able to do maths in the long run. So this is what we have to practice now. So this is how we get our order of operations, count up how many units we have in each part, and count up the total number of units overall. And that is what we need for now.